Hey everyone, I am your astrologer Wonder Girl, taking you to new heights. This is your astrology horoscope for the new moon in Aries, which happens on Sunday, April 11th, 2021 at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time or 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, depending upon which part of the United States that you're in, or really which part of the world that it is that you're into. What I think this new moon is really all about is about us more fully stepping into new blessed chapters in life that started to come at the end of last year. And it's about us seeing those new chapters more fully manifest and us having a lot of conversations with ourselves, with other people, with some, a lot of negotiations in order to bring those things together. It could feel a bit scary, I should note, as we work these things out and trigger us in some way, but I do think is ultimately going to be very, very good, and that we're going to get a lot of courage up here in order to face these things and move on. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. If you want to hear more about that, please stay tuned because I'm going to hop into it right now. Before I explain more, though, about what this new moon is, I always do like to place it on the chart first, just so that you can see it and know what I'm talking about and follow along with me. So I'm going to do that now. What is the new moon? Maybe we should look for the moon first. This video is for the new moon, which involves the moon. Here's the moon in this chart, 22 degrees Aries, at the exact degree here that the sun is at. And when the moon conjuncts the sun, that's what's called a new moon, when it's at the same degree and in the same sign. Okay, what are new moons all about? New moons are all about like new beginnings and fresh starts. Okay, what is Aries about? Since whatever sign the new moon is in is what the new beginning and the fresh start is in. So what is Aries about? Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. That's why there's a number 1 by it. And because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, to me, it's also about new beginnings. It's also about fresh starts. And this is the first new moon of the astrological new year, since Aries is what starts the zodiac. So what that means to me is that this is like a big new beginning, a new beginning, something a little bit more significant perhaps than the other new moons that it is that we have. Okay, not only is Aries itself also about new beginnings, having like the flavor of the new moon itself, but Aries is also a lot about our identity, who we are as a whole, and also being a Mars ruled sign is about how we do things in order to get what we want and need out in the world. So not only is this new moon like a big new moon of some sort to get us on some new beginning and on some new path, but it's also a big new beginning as well to help us step more into a different identity, a different sense of self, and a different way of doing things in order to facilitate this different identity that we're now moving into. Not only that, but I should also note that Aries is a fire sign, and to me, fire signs are passionate signs. So not only is this new moon about us like stepping into a new identity and a new way of doing things to facilitate that new identity in a big way, but it's also as well about us getting like more inspiration, if you will, more motivation and more passion back for life as we do things in this different way and work that out. Okay, and I think that's what I'll say there. To me, that's the new moon in Aries in like a nutshell. So I'm going to repeat that perhaps one more time. For those of you who watch me, I like to do that before I move on. What I think this new moon in Aries very generally is really all about is about us stepping in a big way into a new way of seeing ourselves and presenting ourselves in the world, and in a new way of doing things different than who we've been and what we've done before. Okay, that's bringing more passion in some way, more motivation, and more inspiration in order for us to move forward. Okay, now before I explain more specifically about what this new moon is about and how it's going to play out, I do always like to go back now in time before I go forward, just to give you the context of how we got here, the story so far, and why this is now a thing that is coming up. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to go back to that last solar eclipse, which was a new moon in Sagittarius at the end of December of 2020. I want to go back to that solar eclipse because solar eclipses are pretty big deals that also start new cycles, especially when it's a new moon that lasts for some time. Okay, what was that new moon solar eclipse about in Sagittarius? In my opinion, that was about us stepping into a major new solar eclipse and blessed Sagittarius chapter of life. Different, very, very drastically different from what we had experienced for many months and years prior to this point. Possibly even 35 years prior to that point, since that was the last time Saturn and Pluto came conjunct. Not only was that solar eclipse about us just stepping into a major new chapter of life, different from what we'd experienced for many years prior, but it was about us stepping into a major new chapter of life without a lot of the trauma and the abuse and the baggage of the past as well, since I do believe that the last few years were very trying and very challenging for many of us. And December 2020, to me, that solar eclipse is like about erasing a lot of the hard, I don't know if erasing is the word, was about us overcoming a lot of those old hard times and moving on into better ones. But even though I truly do believe that was the case, I do feel like there was some difficulty between then and now, fully embracing this new, better, and blessed chapter in life that arrived and the good stuff that it was bringing. What was the problem there? Well, the problem was that new moon in Capricorn that happened in the middle of January of 2021 and the new moon in Aquarius that happened in the middle of February of this year. Both of those were challenging new moons that brought up blockages to these blessings. These blockages, in my opinion, were a lot of self-sabotage, feelings of victimization that it is that we may have carried over from the old life. It was also perhaps addictions that we may have also had to cope with some of these hard times, as well as like low self-esteem in a lot of ways, and not cutting things out of our life enough from the old that needed to go. However, I do believe that last month, at last month's new moon, that new moon in Pisces in March of 2021, we were able to finally kick all of those things that were preventing us from moving forward into this new and blessed chapter of life. We were able to kick those things and heal, maybe not 100%, but a lot more fully from those things of the past. And because we were able to kick the stuff that was preventing us from moving forward and heal more fully from a lot of baggage from the past, we now get to this new moon in Aries on April 11th, of which this video is for, that gives us a boost now to more fully start what already started, a more of a boost now to embark on that new and blessed chapter of life that came in December of 2020, but that maybe felt delayed or that maybe felt like a little muddled as we moved forward on it. Okay, and because now at this new moon in Aries, the new moon, the first new moon of the astrological new year and the first sign of the zodiac, because now we are stepping into this new and blessed chapter of life that arrived months ago. We're seeing ourselves in a different way. We're behaving in a different way from here on out, and we're getting more motivated now, more motivated and more inspired to move things forward even more in the ways that we need. Okay. And I think that's what I'll say there. So maybe just to repeat that portion one more time, because astrology is complex. So that's why I like to repeat. There's a lot of moving parts here that move very quickly. So I want to repeat that one more time. What do I think's been going on here for the past few months? Especially because that was a lot. Like I literally just covered like 5-6 months in like a few minutes. What do you think has been going on for the past few months is that we've stepped into a new, better, and blessed chapter in life, away from a lot of hard and abusive times of the past few years and decades in December. But even though we did step into that new, better, and blessed chapter of life, we haven't really been able to feel like it's here or to access it in its entirety. We haven't been able to do that because a lot of emotional problems really, and personal problems, self-sabotage, addictions, low self-esteem, what have you. And over the course of the past few weeks, we have fixed all of those things, or most of those things that have been preventing us from more fully accessing our blessings. And because now we've fixed and healed from those things, now at this new moon in Aries, of which this video is for, we can more fully embrace the new, better, and blessed chapter in life and see it more fully manifest and transform who we are as a whole in order to meet this new chapter in life and to be ready, to be more ready for it to actually manifest. Okay, and that's it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the specific aspects that this new moon is making so that you can get more of a sense specifically of how it's going to play out. So let me do that. Here's the new moon in Aries, just to replace it on the chart. what this new moon, one of the first, I guess, aspects I want to talk about is the fact that this new moon in Aries is making a conjunction to really both Mercury and Venus. I think I'm going to include both of those. Okay, so what does that mean to me? That this new beginning that we're stepping into, this new identity, this new sense of self that really we've been trying to get to for quite some time, also involves Venus, our relationships. It's not just us changing, it's who we interact with in our lives and how we interact with people too. That's also shifting with us, or making this shift, or that we're also maneuvering as time goes on. Not only are our relationships shifting, but with our sense of self and who we are, but also Venus has to do with money for a lot of us too. How we make money, or how we view money, or how we use our money, and also our resources, our time too, is also adapting and adjusting as well, so that we can move forward more fully getting this show on the road here. Okay, not only does this new moon, like with it being conjunct Venus, mean that all of those things are getting a new boost, but with Mercury being involved, and with Mercury, the planet of thought and of communication, we're having a lot of thoughts to ourselves and conversations with other people about this new person that we're becoming, or finally more able to step into, and about how everything needs to come together with ourselves, our relationships, our time, our money, our resources, our habits, in order for us to move onwards. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I do like to think of these as helpful influences, because neither of these are malefic planets. A matter of fact, a lot of these are pretty benefic. So I typically think of this as at least this part of the new moon, as a very, very good thing here, giving us more forward momentum to shift more things in our life all across the board, ways that we need to move on. Okay, at the same time that the new moon is conjunct Mercury and Venus, though, it is also making a square over here to Pluto and Capricorn, which is in the process of stationing to go retrograde over the course of like the next 2 weeks or so. What is that about? Well, this is a hard alignment because it is a square and because it is Pluto. But before I talk about it in a difficult way, I'm actually going to go more neutral first. Pluto is a lot about negotiations, a lot deeper than Mercury does. Like Mercury, which I just talked about, brings thoughts and conversations, but Pluto brings deep thought, deep conversation, deep negotiations. So what this, and deep contemplation. So what this means to me is that as we are at this new moon in Aries, more fully stepping into a new identity, a new chapter in life, and really trying to work things out with our relationships, our money, our time, our resources and habits. Not only are we just thinking and talking about these things, but we're in deep thought and deep contemplation and deep negotiation with ourselves and with other people about what the terms of engagement are, about how this is going to work, about how this new chapter in life is going to work now that we are more fully stepping into it in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Not only is this about deep negotiations, you and me, how are we going to do this relationship, and what does this look like, and what's been going on, and with your time that could be happening, but Pluto is also about permanent change, especially in Capricorn, which is an earth sign having to do with real tangible things, and which rules the highest part of the chart. It's the 10th sign up here, rules the noon time of the chart. So what this means to me is that not only are we in deep thought and deep contemplation about this new chapter in life and about how all the pieces are going to fit together. There's that phrase again that I've said in my other videos, and in what way, but there are actual changes being made as a result of the conversations, actual changes being made in real terms, in reality, in our physical world, changes with our money, changes with our resources, changes with our relationships actually happening. Because I feel like a lot of what's been going on over the course of the past few months or so since December has been a lot of emotional stuff and has been a lot of mental stuff. Like a lot of the stuff that I've said in my past videos have been about self-sabotage, feelings of victimization, low self-esteem. None of that is real. I mean, it is real, I guess, but it's more internal. It's more emotional, and it hasn't been so much external. Not that there weren't things going on in your life per se, but it's been more behind the scenes. And Pluto here In Capricorn, squaring this new moon, the first one of the astrological new year, is about us not only having deep thoughts and conversations about a new life and a new beginning, and maybe some things that we've been working through over the course of the past few months, but it's about us now starting to see things externally being revealed, so to speak, to externally happen to set us up in real terms for this new chapter in life after working out and healing a lot of emotional stuff from the past. Okay, so I want to be clear about that. This is not just deep thoughts and deep contemplation about maybe my relationships could be that way, and maybe I can work with this person in this way, and maybe my money will be different. This is the actual shifting of it in real terms, like tangible, face-to-face interactions, touching things, working things out. It's that's going on. It doesn't have to be big. Don't mistake like tangible things as big as like huge actions. Doesn't have to be huge, but I guess it could be. But the point is, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be real. It just has to be real and tangible. And that's what's going on, I believe, right now at this new moon, negotiating more permanently, more tangibly, this new chapter in life and the terms of engagement surrounding it so that it can actually manifest. Doesn't have to be in a big way, but can just manifest in some real way moving forwards. Okay, I should note that again, to go back to the square, this is a square and this is Pluto, and typically those are hard. A square is a hard aspect, and Pluto is a malefic planet. So even though I think that all those things I just described are like what's meant to go on here, I should note, and that I do think those things are positive, I should note that this can cause some stress. This can cause some stress, especially like early on, the closer it is to this new moon in Aries. All right, this can cause some stress. Why? Well, Pluto a lot of times brings deep fear and deep insecurity that can come up. Why could there be deep fear and insecurity if we're stepping into a new, better, and blessed chapter of life and actually seeing it become more real and more tangible ways and negotiating stuff? Why are we afraid of that? That's like the biggest mystery of this time. But I think we're afraid of that because we're realizing that these old chapters in life, whether or not we actually liked them, we can no longer go back to. We're being permanently cut away from these old things that we used to rely on for better or for worse. And I think that's hard. I think that's hard for us to more fully, permanently make a permanent break from these old chapters and move on. So there's a lot of that's going on here. A lot of good thoughts, a lot of good conversations with relationships, with money, with ourselves, with our time to renegotiate it all in real tangible terms, but a lot of fear of like, oh my gosh, what am I about to do? What am I about to set into motion here? Because what I'm going to set into motion is going to be very different from what I used to have, and I can't go back anymore. So I think there's a lot of that, because when you've got things in the head, I should know, when you're just thinking about a new life in the head and emotionally, you can always kind of go back to the old life because it's still kind of around. But when the new life becomes more tangible, then it gets harder to go back and forth in between worlds. You kind of pick a path and you commit to it, which is a Capricorn thing, right? A Capricorn is a Saturn ruled sign about commitment. So I think that's a lot of the fear here, committing permanently to a new path and reaching the point of no return where we can't go back to an old life, and where now a series of events, more or less, will be set into motion that we're going to have to go with. Okay, another thing too that we could also be afraid of here is, again, this feeling of like getting burned again from old things. I think we've healed a lot from a lot of old things from the past that have been keeping us stuck, healed enough to now more fully step into a new chapter in life. But even though we've healed enough from a lot of old things that were hard for us, I still think there's still a little bit of that like pain from the past that's still around, and that's going to continue to be around, until Saturn enters Aries 6 years from now and onward. So I still think that there's a little bit of the pain around because our past happened, right? We can't just forget about it. that's still around as well. So I think another challenge here that's really scaring us and making us kind of worried and anxious at this new moon in Aries is not only that whatever we negotiate is going to be more permanent and is going to bring us to the point of no return where we can't go back to these old things and have to move forward, but I think we're also afraid that like we may not negotiate the best deal for ourselves, you know, like we may not get the best deal that we want, which is what Venus and Aries, where it doesn't like to, a sign it doesn't like to be in, is super concerned about. So I think there's also part of that too. Like, what if I step into this new chapter in life, but I get the short end of the stick? I don't stand up for my needs. I don't get what I want. Like, I think there's a lot of worry and anxiety around that as well. I think, I'm not going to lie, I think a lot of it is unnecessary. Because I think by now a lot of us have cut the problem relationships, the problem people, and the problem things out of our lives, and now have better people and things in our lives. So, and I don't think that these better people and things are going to screw us over like the old ones did, at least not now, not so soon. Like, you know, so I don't think that the people we're dealing with are going to screw us over. I think and the things, the jobs, the new situations that we're starting to come into, but I do think that there is still some fear, like maybe they are going to screw me over. Maybe they are the same that they used to be. Maybe this thing is not going to work for me. Still, that could be a little bit hard because there are still some of these fears and insecurities, again, which I think are irrational. I'm sorry if that's a little insensitive. I think they're irrational. This could create some arguments here at this time. This is a square. This is Pluto, which can bring deep-seated frustrations, and it is Aries, right? A new moon in Aries, and Aries is a Mars-ruled sign. It is an argumentative sign ruled by a malefic planet, especially when it goes wrong. So this can definitely bring arguments as well. Arguments with ourselves about what we're negotiating, and arguments with other people too about what we're working out. Again, the arguments, in my opinion, are really not based on real things. They're based on fear, which is kind of real, but not really. It's based on fear that the past is going to repeat when it's not. It's not. We're done with that, especially if you've been doing what you needed to do to get rid of this old stuff. And it's a fear of unavoidable change, of which is a positive thing. We're coming into a better time of life. So why would you be afraid of better times in life? So even though there could definitely be some arguments at this time as we're renegotiating the terms of engagement in our lives with money, with time, with resources, with relationships, with habits, in my opinion, they are based on irrational fears and irrational insecurities and not real things. And there is a need to be conscious of that at this new moon, conscious of your own emotional responses here to make sure that you're not getting mad at someone for something that's not their fault, you know, and you're also going to have to be conscious of other people's emotional reactions too, to understand that if someone's getting mad at you, it may not be because of the reason you think it is. Like, it may be because they're just feeling wounded and vulnerable and hurt, and that's fine. You know, so there's some kind of awareness of that I really do think needs to go on here. Not only is there some kind of like awareness too that people may be really tense, not because they don't like you, not because they're mad at you, but because they're scared, right? Not only does there need to be an awareness of that, but I think there also does need to be like more vulnerability and more rawness and more humility at this time as well. That's because Mercury, during this time, which is like fairly closely conjunct the new moon, is also in a conjunction with Chiron. Granted, it passed it. It's coming off of that now a few days, but I use pretty big orbs. This is close enough to me. And what is this about? Chiron is about feeling very vulnerable, very hurt, very raw, very wounded when it goes negative. But when it goes positive, it brings sensitivity, it brings authenticity, it brings removing the mask, removing the veil, which is a lot of what's going on with all this Aquarius influence right now, and having real, true, open, honest communication and heart-to-heart discussions that can be really, really productive. So what that means to me is just to keep bringing it together, is that not only may some of you have to be really conscious of your emotional responses and the emotions of others and to see it for what it truly is and to not get offended by people's weird reactions, but you may also need to, one of you, someone that you're, or something that you're involving with may need to take off the mask and take down the walls and take down the barriers and be real, honest, raw, and vulnerable about the real soft, sensitive spots here of your heart and soul, so that you can overcome the anger and frustration and get to the real issue, get to the real matter here, and work out this new chapter in life in the best way possible, you know? Because like, I don't know, just the thought that came to me as I was saying that is like, how can you negotiate the best deal possible for yourself, if you will, for this new chapter in life, if like you're not being honest about what you really want the new life to be, you know? Like, how can we negotiate the best deal if we're pretending to want things we don't want, and like all of that? So there's also a need here. I do feel that strongly, to be honest and vulnerable, not only so we can like take the pressure off of our relationships, you know, and take away the anxiety and the anger, which is irrational, but also so that we can make sure that we're getting the best deal possible for this new life and working out the best situations for us. Especially because one of the fears I just mentioned earlier, one of the fears at this time is that we're not gonna get the best possible situation. So a lot of vulnerability here, really needed on both ends of whatever you're working out. If you're working with a personal relationship, if you're working with a business relationship, really vulnerability needed from both parties, both people involved, but someone's got to start it. Someone's got to start the vulnerable conversation, and it might as well be you, you know, the one you who's watching this video, you know, because you have more of the understanding here of what's going on. So that's my next thought. Okay. That's my next thought. You know, another thought too, I should note, man, it is like, how do I want to say this? A lot of sensitivity. I feel like someone taking off the mask to have the real conversation, despite the fear of all this stuff, is actually going to open the door. Do I want to say, not only is it going to help you like negotiate the best possible deal for yourself and cut through the anger and the fighting, but it's also going to open up space. Like I get the term like a sacred space, if you will, for something special to happen, for God to take over, the divine to take over, for something spiritual or something like between your soul and another person's soul, or whatever it is that you're interacting with, for the better, in order to work something out that, I don't know if I want to say is going to be like mutually beneficial, but that's going to be nice, going to be special. That's because like at the same time of this like new moon in Aries, that it's making these aspects, Mars is in Gemini here in a square with Neptune and Pisces, and this can definitely bring confusion, but I feel like I've already mentioned the anger and stuff, which can clearly bring a lot of confusion. But when this goes positive, it can bring like a sweet sensitivity, a sweet, like soft spot for just real things to be worked out and real hearts to connect, non-verbally, sure, with the Neptune influence, but especially verbally, right? Verbally with Mars here being in Gemini. Okay, so I'm getting the sense here that there is a lot of tension early on at this new moon in Aries of like, I'm stepping into a new chapter in life and I'm negotiating it, and it's becoming a little bit more real in tangible terms, but I'm afraid and now I'm angry. But the minute that you or another person breaks through the anger to actually say something real and true and honest and vulnerable, it's like then a sweet, soft space, divine spiritual space, I think is really going to open up for, I don't know if I want to say some magic to happen, but for God to do what God does, for God to take over and kind of drive a spirit to take over, intuition to take over, to kind of guide things forward, especially because that's what Neptune does best, especially by hard aspect here to Mars. So I'm seeing this new moon is like coming in like a lion and going out like a lamb. Isn't that like a thing people say around spring when the seasons change? And I feel like this is the case, right? I mean, Aries is a tough sign in my opinion. It's a hard energy. It's aggressive. It's assertive, especially when you go to square to Pluto. And then you get this Mars square Neptune thing. So I think that this new moon comes in tough, playing, you know, having a hard line, wanting to control things, very angry and fearful. Then someone breaks protocol here, takes off the mask, and something really special happens. The emotions flow. I mean, emotions flow for better, for worse, you know, lots of tears, lots of happiness, like the emotions flow, and some insight, divine information, divine insight, divine spiritual clarity, I think, comes that helps us to see the big picture and to figure things out and to move on in better ways that I like. Helping to open up doors for us and give us a better idea of what our future is, and of what this next chapter in life actually is, as well. Because not only like there's this stuff going on that I've already mentioned, but this new moon in Aries is also making a sextile itself, the new moon itself, over here to Jupiter in Aquarius, and this to me is a good alignment. Now I'm gonna mention the good ones. It's a good one. I always interpret sextiles positively, at least in my opinion here. And I like Jupiter. Those of you who follow me know I like Jupiter. Some of you may not. I always interpret Jupiter mostly positive, okay? So I like it. Jupiter to me brings optimism. It brings understanding. It brings gifts. It brings good luck. It brings passion. And it is the ruler of that solar eclipse that was in Sagittarius a few months ago. So what is this about for me? This is about more passion, more understandings about our future, about what's next, and about our authentic self and who we really are, that come from us negotiating what needed to be negotiated and not being afraid to be raw and to be vulnerable and to be emotional and to be sensitive and to let, you know, God, spirit, soul, and intuition guide and direct our steps as we move forward. Okay, I do like it. That brings great understanding, wisdom, passion, and insight about what's next. Not only does it bring all this stuff, more optimism and understanding of what's next in life, where we can get like a more clear view now of like what's in the future and what's to come for this next chapter of our life, but it also helps us to figure out a few next steps forward. That's because at the same time all this other stuff is going on, this new moon is also making a sextile over here to Mars in Gemini. Okay, and a sextile, again, is positive, a positive alignment. What is Mars and Gemini about? Well, there's the typical things that you hear about Gemini, right? Gemini being about communication, which it is, right? It is about that, being ruled by Mercury. But another thing that Gemini is about, which doesn't really get talked about as much, is also about like a lot of little things, It's the way sometimes I see Gemini, a little bit here, a little bit there, you know, to kind of just like, you know, settle into things, right? So not only at this new moon in Aries are we negotiating like what the new chapter in life is and getting some divine inspiration about that, especially if we can be real, honest, and vulnerable with ourselves and other people about what's actually going on with us and what our soul truly desires. Not only that, but we're getting like a clear view now, more of a clear view of our future, of what's next. And we're coming up with a few little steps, a few little action steps on how exactly we can move forward in this new chapter in life and bring things together. Again, they don't have to be big. This doesn't feel big. A few little action steps. But just because they're little, it doesn't mean they're small. Just because they're little, it doesn't mean they don't have big effects. I think these few little things that we're going to do are going to have drastic effects for the future, especially because so much about this time in our lives is very karmic and is very destined, and is very life-changing and is meant to be with us for quite some time. So my thought on that is this is not a bunch of 500, a ton of huge steps to step into a new chapter in life. This is like 2 or 3 small steps at a time to step into this new chapter in life. And these 2 or 3 really small steps actually being very positive to forge us into new experiences that I believe are going to be with us for many years and decades from here on out. Like the things we do around this time are really significant and powerful. You have lots of effects in the past and in the future. Okay, so don't underestimate small actions here. They're going to lead to big payoffs. If you can't see it now, then down the line. Okay. Other things that I want to say about this. Yeah, maybe one other thing too, Gemini. Gemini is also a playful sign. It's goofy, it's silly in a lot of ways. So not only, I think by the end of this new moon, are we going to have more clarity about our future and what's next, and a few steps in order to move things forward, but we're also going to be feeling lighter. We're going to be feeling like a weight has been lifted off our shoulders now that we're starting to see more of the new life manifest, if not in big ways and in small ways. I think it's probably more so in small ways, because we're seeing the new life manifest in small ways that are going to have big impacts down the line. And that is helping us breathe in, breathe out, with Gemini being an air sign here, so that we can move on. Okay, because Gemini does. I mean, Gemini sextiles Aries is good. Gemini takes the tension. It takes the tension away from the Aries and helps it and work things out. So it's good. This is a good thing here that I think is happening. Even if there's just a little bit of a tough moment as we like crack the hard outer shell before we move forward. Okay, and I think that's all I'm going to say there, because those are really, I think, all the astrological aspects that I planned on talking about in this video. So I'm just going to repeat that one more time before I talk about the inside degrees and some other things. So let's do that. What I think is going on at this new moon in Aries is that we are now finally more fully, in a more real and tangible way, stepping into a new, better, and blessed chapter of life that will be with us for many years and decades after this point that arrived in December of 2020. Okay, in order for us, though, to step into this new, better, and blessed chapter in life all across the board with ourselves, our relationships, our money, time, resources, and habits, we're going to need to have a lot of deep thoughts and deep conversations about all of those things, and deep negotiations about them as well, so that we can figure out the terms of engagement with them moving forward. I think we need to have these deep thoughts, conversations, and negotiations in order to make all this stuff happen and actually manifest. However, it could feel very, very scary because of how permanent some of this stuff feels like it's about to be, and because of what it's going to set into motion, and maybe because of what we've been through in the past. That could create, we could be scared, and that could create some frustration and some anger and anxiety with ourselves and with other people. That could be a big thing. But if we or the other people that we're working with take the first step here to remove the mask, be raw, vulnerable, sensitive, emotional, and real about what's actually going on here, that are really like safe, special, spiritual, inspired, like divinely guided portal will open up, if you will, to help you figure some things out. And that like divinely guided portal, I think, is then going to give everyone involved in the situation a lot more clarity on like what's happening and where things are going and on what's next, and on the few small steps in order to in order to bring everything together, which is going to take like a huge load off your shoulders and everyone else's, and bring a more lighter, like fresher, more playful, simpler energy to us from here on out than what we've previously experienced. Okay. So that's it. That's it. We're more permanently stepping into the new chapter in life here. Not in a big way per se, but in a tangible way, which kind of is big, either way you look at it, but in a tangible way that's tense at first, but ends up being very good, especially if someone in the situation can let their guard down and stop pretending here, stop, trying to be all these things. Stop trying to be tough, like that's another thing about like the Aries alignment, is that Aries tries to be tough, right? It's a masculine sign, it's a marginal sign. It wants to come on strong, it wants to appear to be strong, wants to appear to have everything figured out, wants to appear to have everything tough. And there's just something about this new moon that's like, don't pretend you have it all figured out, okay? You don't. This is the first new moon of the astrological new year. This is the beginning of a new chapter in life we've never experienced before in our lifetimes. Like, there's a need at this new moon to realize you don't have it all figured out. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be tough, and that's okay. That's okay. There is a strength and a power in sensitivity and in vulnerability, and it's about finding that. But again, I think we do it, especially with Venus at this time in Aries. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read the inside degree for this new moon in order to give you more information about it. Okay, so I just pulled the inside degrees up on the screen. If you want to read 22 degrees, because this new moon is at 22 degrees Aries, you can read that. You can pause the video and read it. However, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like this is it for me. What this new moon is about. And I already read this in one of my other videos. I film a lot more videos on my website. I already talked about this in my weekly video. I'm over it. I like 23 degrees Aries. So that's what we're going to look at here. Maybe I'll move it down that way. Okay. This inside degree, I should note, not written by me. It's written by a man named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled from spirit the meanings of each of the degrees of the zodiac. Okay, and I just happened to find this source online, although I believe there's like a physical copy of his book you can also buy. But online is better because you can see it here. What does this say? 23 degrees Aries, to give more information about the new moon. A bottle labeled "Drink Me" reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. Okay, it says this: the force of events sweeps away who we thought we were and plunges us to a deeper place beyond the known. So what does that mean to me so far about this new moon? And what I've just said is that there is some sort of event. I think it's a real event. I think it's a real tangible one. Not so much one in the mind and the emotions, like maybe the past few months but I think it's a real tangible event here that's going to create change that is going to sweep us away into a different chapter in life beyond what we've experienced before. Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what to say if this is a big or small event, but it feels to me that this is a small event that's going to occur that has big implications. So this could be a big event for you that has big implications, but to me, the flavor of this is a small event that has magnitude is going to happen here to move things forward. All right. And this is another reason why, to connect back, why I think there's a lot of fear going around. This is a reason why I think there's a lot of fear at this new moon, because look at this. I mean, there's an event that's going to plunge us to somewhere we've never been before, out of what we've done in the past. So there's a lot of that going on. Okay, the next line says, the sheer immediacy, the sudden clarity shifts mountains of intent into a different octave altogether. Okay, so different octave altogether. There we get a similar language as the plunging us to a deeper place beyond the known. To me, it's just different ways of saying here we're stepping into a totally different life experience on a very different plane, a very different level than what we've been through. This sentence to me also indicates that it's present. I mean, that is Aries to me. It is very present. You know, I'm here. What are you going to do now? You know, I'm here. You have to make a decision. I'm in the flesh. And we got to figure things out. So I think there's something, it's something's very present, a present event in the moment, also an Aries thing, quick in the moment, got to make a decision about. I'm feeling decision energy at this time. There's not really, just to backtrack a little bit, there's not really any alignment to me that would indicate the decisions, maybe other than Pluto being in Capricorn, which is kind of a serious sign, and Saturn still lingering maybe in that square to Uranus, but this is picking it up here. I don't know, I'm for some reason getting a decision has to be made, because do you see these words? We've got a force of an event, something very immediate, plunging us into a different octave, a deeper place beyond the known. There's something that this is reminding me of, like, we have to make a decision, stay stuck or move forward, stay in the past or move on. And to me, that's also an Aries thing. Like, not only is Aries like present, I'm a force to be reckoned with. What do you want to do with me? I'm here. Are we doing? But Aries does not sit on the fence. That to me is why sometimes Aries can be a bit of an aggressive sign and bring some of the frustrations, because Aries is like, yes or no, this or that, like, whatever, I'm gonna do something, so pick something, so there's something about this that's going on. There's an event that's occurring that's right in our face that we're gonna have to deal with and make a choice about what we want to do that's gonna shift a lot of things in our lives. Okay. A lot of choices around here. You're going to have to make the choice to step into the new, and not only the choice to step into the new, but the choice to be vulnerable about what you're doing as well. So a lot of choices at this time in multiple different ways that could come up. Okay, the next line says, being taken by storm is the most direct path from here to there. Maybe some of you are thinking at this new moon, I'll just negotiate nicely. I'll just negotiate a little bit with another person, or with my money, or with my time, or with my resources to make that happen. And this is saying, no, this is not tread lightly. This is stand up for yourself, say what you want. You know, this is Aries, right? Like, Aries is not a wallflower. Aries is not a wallflower. It's a dominant sign. It's a dominant sign. It takes charge. I'm here. What do you want? Is this happening or no? Make a decision. What is going on? So there's also this message here that's saying, there is a need to be vulnerable, okay, and to temper some of that. All right, there is a need for that a little bit, but don't be afraid. There's also this is coming into me too, of like, don't be afraid of change, and don't be afraid of, you know, being vulnerable. Don't be afraid of things getting messy. You know, sometimes things have to get messy before they get better, and beginnings are messy. You know, beginnings are messy experiences, because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what's happening, and that's fine. That's fine. You know, and I think of Aries as a kind of a messy sign. Like, Virgo is a clean sign, but Virgo quincunx is Aries. Aries just does things, and this is what happens. So there's another message here. Stop trying to play nice and button it up here. Let your baggage show, like, especially with the Chiron stuff. Like, the full moon in Libra was nicer, all right? The full moon in Libra 2 weeks before this, Libra is buttoned up, right? Like, Libra likes to, you know, be nice and, you know, say nice things and make sure everyone's okay. Aries, not like that. Aries is like, no, this is what I want. You don't like it? Okay. You know, like, this is how I feel. So, you know, not that you have to be mean and not that you have to fight people here, but because there is a real possibility of that, but there is a need to not be afraid of things getting messy, of things getting emotional. Like, don't be afraid of that, you know, because that storm, if you will, like the emotional storm is the most, it's the only way. It's the only way to get to where we want to go, or the quickest way to get to where we want to go, you know? So there's something about that needs to happen. Some event, just to keep putting it together, some event is going to come up, I think, in your face at this new moon that you're going to have to make a decision about. It doesn't have to be a big event, but it does seem to be something, okay? And this decision is going to change the course of your life in some way, shape, or form, and you need to not be afraid to face it head on and allow things to get messy, because things getting messy is how things begin and how things come together, okay? And sometimes messy means arguing before the clarity comes, and sometimes messy means tears and emotions before the solution comes, and it's fine, whatever way messy means to you. Sometimes things have to get messy in order for us to move on, okay? But that should be fine, right? I mean, that's what Aries does. Okay, I'm here, you know, let's deal with it. So I think that we want to do it. I think that we want to face these things, and I think that now is the time. Okay. It says, and when cosmic worlds are urgently coming through, the only smart thing is to step aside and make a huge amount of room for unexpected guests at events you could never have arranged in your wildest dreams. So that to me speaks of the Mars square Neptune alignment, right? Like, if we can, this is saying to me that if we can deal with an event that comes up in our lives head on, that's going to change it in some way, shape, or form, and make a decision about it, and not be afraid to get messy, whatever way that means, something good is going to come. Something cosmic, otherworldly is going to come through, okay? To help us move forward, and we just need to allow it, to allow something else to emerge, perhaps suddenly and unexpectedly too, as things go on. Okay, the unexpected thing is important as well, because we do have planets now in Aquarius, so and Aries too, to me, is a bit impulsive and unpredictable. So there could also be, I should note, an important point. This could be an unexpected event that could come, like something you didn't think was going to happen, or, you know, something you weren't thinking of unexpectedly comes up now to kind of shift you into these different things as well. So keep that in mind. This event that occurs at this new moon may not be what you were thinking it would be. Whoops. Or it may not be what you thought would happen, or it can be something that you thought was going to happen, but it just happens in a different way. Like there's also something like that that's going on too. Not only is whatever occurs at this new moon in Aries perhaps a little bit unpredictable, if you will, but it may play out also in an unpredictable way too, because I do feel like there's something very spiritual, if you will, going on at this new moon with the Neptune stuff. So that also indicates to me too that we may go into this event that occurs trying to negotiate something to step into a new chapter in life, and that by the end of it, God may have a different plan of how it's supposed to go and of how it's supposed to work out, or spirit or universe, and we need to be open here to God taking care of that and to whatever spirit and universe is trying to direct us to, even if it's not what we originally intended. Okay. So that's another point. Not only are there a lot of decisions that need to be made about a lot of different things, but there may be a lot of unexpected turns of events that come up too as we work this event out in order for us to move forward. Okay. And I think that's what I'll say there. Any other notes that it is that I want to mention? There is a thing I want to mention, new beginnings. I want to talk about that while I shuffle your cards. When does the beginning actually start? When is the beginning of something? I'm going to maybe start this out in a very philosophical way. What is the beginning of something? Because I talked a lot about the solar eclipse in Sagittarius in December bringing a new beginning, and then now I talk about the new moon in Aries bringing really the new beginning to that solar eclipse. Like they're connected, in my opinion. This new moon in Aries is very, very, very strongly connected to that solar eclipse in Sagittarius in December, and I guess my question, or the question that I ask myself when I think about the astrology, is like, if this is the new beginning of the new life, right, that's going to be with us for many decades, then what was December? What was that solar eclipse? And the way that I see it is that December, or around December, was, how do I want to say this? A few thoughts. I feel like the future enters into us like long before it actually happens. All right. So my first thought is that I do believe that some new chapter in life really did come in December. Even if we don't see it until now, that something new did come in order to pave the way for that. It could have been like a spiritual new thing or belief that was new, but I do believe that if if we were to trace now what is happening at this new moon in Aries, it will go back to events that happened in December or the months prior, into something that shifted within our belief systems, our mind or energy field at that time, or started to shift. Okay, another thing too, maybe this is where I'll get into my metaphor, because I know I've been, giving you a lot of metaphors in my videos, is like the way that I see also as well these two events is that the solar eclipse in Sagittarius to me in December was like the conception, like when you have like a pregnancy, when you conceive. And then to me, this new moon in Aries is more like the birth of that pregnancy, if you will. I know the timeline doesn't quite match. So I'm like, maybe the new chapter in life actually came like a few months prior to December, if we want to get like the 8-9 months time frame. But anyways, that's the way that I see it. And that's the way that I see these two events. Like December was like when we found out we were pregnant, and then the new moon in Aries now is like when the baby's born and things like that. But that, and I use that example too to bring a different way of thinking about the past few months as well, because there are a lot of there's a lot of debate. I talked about this in my weekly horoscope on my website for this last week that we had for the third quarter moon in Capricorn. But so if you're on my subscription, you've already heard me say a little bit of this. But in society, there is when it comes to a baby's life, there's a lot of debate about when a baby's life starts. Does it start at conception? Does it start when it's born? Does it start somewhere in between? And I think that that's the question that I want to pose for some of you, because I feel like a lot of you who have been, not a lot of you, just some of you who've been watching my videos over the course of the past few months, since December have been like, Wonder Girl, I don't see any new life here. There is no new life. Nothing new is going on. And things just feel very crazy and very emotional, you know? And so I want to pose that question to you to answer on your own is like, when does new life really begin? Does it begin when it's the seed, you know, like just implanted, you know, somewhere deep that you can't see? Or does the new life actually start once it's born? I know my answer to that question. You know, I know my answer to that question. I think the new life started in December, right? I mean, maybe I'm a little bit more romantic as well about some of these things, but I think the new life started in December. You know, I think a life starts like when a baby is conceived. And so that's my opinion. But for some of you who feel otherwise, right, like then this is a new beginning, but it's up for you to decide. I'm just rambling now to help you think about the connections here about what is a new beginning, right? And what does a new beginning actually look like? Are they messy? Are they not? And when do they really start? And what is it, you know? When does a new life start? And if we want to think about it in practical terms, like if you're some of those people who are like, new life doesn't really start until the baby is born, then it's like, well, then what was all that happened before? What was that to you? You know, what is that? I don't know. Because that's what I feel like that was. And there's December to now. And maybe that's why a lot of us have a lot of weird feelings about it, you know, because is it real? Is it not? It can't be seen, but it kind of can. So I don't know, just some food for thought there. Just some food for thought, but I believe that beginnings occur way before they actually happen in the spirit world, if you will, before they're actually made manifest. And like, I even think that babies have souls before, you know, we have souls, we're humans, we have souls before we're born. So I'm like, human life exists before, right? Like in the spirit world before it enters the body, but that's a whole other conversation. So it brings up a whole other thing. But if we want to talk about, you know, right, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Because maybe I'll go there for a minute, because we can even trace this new chapter in life that I talk about in December of 2020. Like we can even trace that back years prior to that. Like really, in my opinion, this new chapter in life that we're trying to get to really came like 8 years ago when Saturn was in Libra. And in Scorpio, which was a while back. Like the new chapter in life really started to come then, when like the soul of the new life was like in the ether wanting to come down. But it really wasn't until about December of last year when like the new life became implanted, if you will, like about to be born into the physical world. So and now it's being born in the physical world. It's its birthday. This is like the birthday of the new life, in order to move it forward. So food for thought there. I won't linger, but lots of correlations that can be made, and ways of thinking about what's going on now to the actual like real pregnancy and birth of like a new person. Okay. Right, especially too, because Aries is right. It's the seed. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It is the new life. I mean, there's a lot about Aries, which is about that, like planting, you know, sure, planting the seed, or maybe if you want to think of like conception of some sort. But that solar eclipse was what? I guess it wasn't really aspecting anything in Aries, but. You know, but Aries correlates to new beginnings, like the seed, like implanting a seed, a baby just being born, like new beginnings in every sense of the word, like falls into Aries, like fresh starts. It's why it has like this like youthful, you know, passion and excitement about it. So just a lot of that going on to just think about there. Now your card, before I ramble. The tower, upper eight, surprise. What is this? So the first thing to note here is that this is a major arcana card. So this does, to me, major arcana cards indicate big events, big they may be small events, but big impacts, very significant events here. Okay, the Tower to me also does indicate big change, big sweeping change. Also indicates not only big sweeping change that totally revolutionizes your life, but also indicates big sweeping change that could come suddenly and unexpectedly out of the blue and turn everything upside down. And the message here is to go with it instead of fighting against it, to fight for it instead of against it. Because fighting against this change that now needs to happen is only going to create problems for yourself. Fighting against what's going on is only going to make things worse. Now is really the time to go with it, to move forward. I think that's like another thing. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I think that's another thing that people are afraid of. They're afraid of stepping into unavoidable change, of setting a series of events in motion that they can't get out of. But it's like, why would you be afraid of that when the events are going to be good? Okay. Another thing too, another message that I wanted to say earlier as well is that there are lots of like themes that I'm just feeling now about power and about taking your power back and about stepping into your power, even if it's not quite the way that you thought power is. Especially too, because I do see Aries as a very powerful sign. I mean, it starts the whole zodiac for crying out loud, you know, so it starts the whole zodiac, and which to me means that all the other signs kind of depend on it in some way. Right? Because Aries starts, if we want to think about it in like a planting, in like a farmer's terms, Aries is the first sign of spring, according to the astrology that I do, which is based on the hemisphere that I'm in. And the weather for spring determines how the farm is going to grow, how the seeds are going to start to grow when we get to Cancer, summer, and what the harvest is going to be like when we get to Libra, fall. So Aries is a very powerful sign. It sets things into motion, and a lot of the other all the other signs are in some way dependent upon what Aries does and what it starts and how it set things into motion here. So my thought too is not only is this time going to create big change in our lives, even if it comes through a small event that we need to not be afraid of and that we need to just go with, but that we need to not be afraid of like the power that comes with it. We need to not be afraid of like the power, even if it's a different kind of power than what we were originally thinking. We need to not be afraid of the power that's going to come with it for us to move forward by the end of it. Like maybe the beginning of the new moon in Aries is like a little bit tense and anxious and worrisome, but by the end of the new moon in Aries, once we get some spiritual insight or clarity, there's something really powerful that starts to go on. And I think another message too is that some of you need to not be afraid to claim your power. Like some of you have, your fear is not that you're weak. Some of you have a fear that you're like powerful beyond measure, and that's also what's stopping you as that fear, because now is a time to claim your power and to step into your power, even if it's different than what you were thought, and to move forward with that. Because things are being removed and rebuilt in your life so that you can be stronger. So just know that this is not a new moon that's supposed to bring horrible events that break you down that you can't recover from. This is a new moon that brings challenging events that are meant to build you up, and put you together in a new and different way that's going to bring much power and much strength. And you need to not be afraid of the process, the childbirth process here, in order to get there and to step into your power, like once you've arrived, you know, and to kind of direct the events in the ways that you need. Okay, the card, oh my gosh, the card at the bottom of the deck is, this deck calls it karma. This is the Witch's Tarot. This calls it karma upright, but this is judgment upright, which is funny because it's another major arcana, which is a big deal. All right, we've got two of them, which makes sense here. Aries, the first, Aries kills me every single time. You know, I always get to the Aries new moon, and I always, just the Aries new moon frustrates me so much because I forget how much Aries changes things. Like, you know, I do look back at that, to go on another tangent, I do look back on that solar eclipse in Sagittarius, and I'm like, what could I have said better about that December eclipse to like better prepare you for how this was going to go and how things were actually going to play out? And there are a few things I could do differently, but one of them is fucking Aries season. Like, I don't know why I always forget. It's like, you need to remember Aries season changes so much because it's the first sign of the zodiac. Right? You know, the type of astrology I do is based on the solstices and the equinoxes, and 0 degree Aries and Libra are the equinoxes, and 0 degrees Cancer and Capricorn are the solstices. So it's like, I should have known that it would take more time until Aries season but it's fine. It's fine. We're here now. It's okay. And not only is massive change happening at this time, but we're being called up higher. Both of these are upright, I think a good thing. We're being called up higher here to new levels. And now I think is the time to release a lot of the baggage of the past and to move forward. And the next card that we have is the 6 of Wands upright. This is also one of my favorite cards, which goes very well with the Aries influence, about victory, about success, about celebrations, about positivity, about winning. And to me, the 6s are also a number of unconditional like love and harmony too. So I'm feeling here that a lot of change is going to happen that maybe it's small change that feels very big and very scary and may come very unexpectedly and happen in weird ways, but it's going to come to lift you higher, to take you to new levels in life, and to help you be a new person, do things in a different way, and to step into your power. And you need to not be afraid here to embrace this change and to do what needs to be done and to get a little bit messy, because there's going to be success on the other side here. Success and celebration, I think, and victory that's going to help you move forward too, which is like another Aries thing, like, right? Like Aries doesn't like to lose. So there's not going to be losing. There's no losing here. There's going to be lots of winners. The only way you can lose is to not do. The only way you can lose is to not take action, is to not do something in a different way, whatever way that is. But if you do take some sort of action, big or small, towards something else, like towards a different way of living, I do believe that good things are going to happen here. And now is the time and to enjoy the ride. So that is your horoscope for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and I will talk to you on the next one.